Hello and welcome to the Great Unexplained Debate. We're here with three special guests to discuss all things unexplained. This is a live show, or recorded as live. There are no edits, so what we say, you see. I'm Carl Beattie, I'm your host for the next hour, if I can get my words out without fumbling over them too much. Now with me this week, I'm very, very pleased to welcome back Phil Wyman, founder of Dead Haunted Nights, paranormal investigator, television presenter and author, and someone I've spent many, many nights with.
Yes, careful how you say that.
In cold, dark places. Thanks very much, Phil, for coming in. Also, we've got Sarah Woodward. Thank you very much for coming again. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Paranormal expert, founder of White Rose Paranormal.
Who you wish you'd spent many nights with.
My wife will be watching this, and she will probably want to talk to you about that later on. Okay. And obviously, butting in there in front of everyone else as usual, it's Fred Batt to my left, demonologist. As I said, I want to go back and start this again, but I can't. Demonologist, witchcraft expert, and all-round nice guy, and nightclub owner, and just about everything else that comes on that you can think of with a person. But thanks very much for coming in, Fred. Right, just to get this going and kickstart it, I want to talk about ghostly phenomena. Ooh. I know we've talked about lots of different things in the past, but just generally ghostly phenomena, what people have seen, what we perhaps have seen, what people out there have seen. And don't forget, at the end of the show, you will get our website address, email address. So please email in if you've got any ghostly stories or anything you want us to talk about, because we'll be more than happy to talk about it, but let us know. Now, Sarah, is there any particular ghost story you've ever heard in all of your investigations, or just generally, even if it's an urban myth of a story, that's kind of put you on edge?
There was a book, really, that got me into paranormal when I was a kid, and it was actually my dad's book. It was called Ghosts Across Britain, and there was one story in there, and I don't know if it was just actually the story and the picture that linked together, but it was about a girl that when she went to bed, that she felt some unseen hands pressing down, a pressure on her, and in the picture, which was just an illustration, there was this big black shape pressing down on this girl with just her hair sticking out of the bed, and these massive big eyes. And every time I used to read this, it used to just freak me out to the point where I couldn't sleep in the dark. And it was really that story that got me interested in the paranormal and that book, because it was supposedly true events across Britain.
That's it. It's when the stories are true. That's the kind of, because that quite often, if it's a fictional account of something, you just go, that's kind of, it didn't really happen.
You feel safe.
You feel safe
because you're distanced from it, aren't you, kind of thing.
Sounds like
succulent. One of the stories, and I remember reading when I was a youngster, again, because I've been into the genre of the paranormal for a long time, is Big Bad William Darrell, I think it was, who threw the baby on the fire at Littlecote House. Which is supposedly one of the ghosts that haunts Littlecote House, and that is again a true story apparently. But it's always one of those things that makes your hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and I think, like you say a moment ago, more so because it's supposedly a true event. Yeah. And that kind of just gets me a little bit.
It's the horror. It's actually horrific. If it is true, and if it's that horrific thing of a body being thrown on a fire, anything but a little defenseless baby, and you think, crumbs, if it did happen, it must have been horrible. What about you, Fred?
It's funny, people.
It's supposed to be scary, Fred.
You like being scared.
Yeah.
And it goes back to when I was fairly young. And I remember seeing a film called Curse of the Mummy's Tomb.
Oh yeah.
And the mummy comes walking around the embankment in the fog and down the steps like this. And it frightened me to death. I had nightmares for weeks. And then later on, a couple of years afterwards...
Do you know Peter Cushing was supposed to have actually been in that film, but unfortunately his wife was sadly died around the making of that film, so he wasn't in it. He actually did some voiceover for it, but I don't think...
Was it Christopher Lee?
No, it wasn't any of the usual suspects, no.
But then after that, I was walking around Belgrave Square in London, and I discovered the...
I thought you were going to say the mummy came up to me.
Well, I wish it had, but no, I don't. The Spiritualist Association in Belgrave Square, and I walked in for some reason, curiosity, and I saw these pictures of famous people after they died, ghosts and things, and tape recordings that had happened after they died. And I don't know if I believed it or not, but it got me interested in the paranormal, and from then on I was looking into witchcraft and demonology and various things like that. So that's what got me interested in it first of all.
I have to admit, I think one of the scariest stories I've heard was really from Berkeley Square. It's the bookshop in Berkeley Square.
Number 50.
That where it seems that whatever is that's in there is so horrific that at least one person jumped out of a window and impaled himself on the.
I remember that. I remember that story.
How scary does something have to be for you to leap from an upper window to get away from it, knowing that even if you don't die, you will certainly spend the rest of your life maimed?
I tell you what, if I'd been at the bottom of those stairs in the fog and that mummy was coming down it, I would have been in the tank.
But the thing again, it's the story thing, because once you think it's real, I mean, one of my most vivid memories of when I was younger, because I'd always been into horror films, and one of the first horror films I can remember seeing was The House on Haunted Hill, Vincent Price version. And there's one part where, I mean, basically the story is where, I think at the time, it goes to show how old this is, at the time, £10,000 was going to, or $10,000 was going to be given to the people who could stay in the house overnight. And that's the idea of the premise of the film. And one by one, they all kind of get murdered or get killed, but it's all about that this house is haunted. And there's this one part where this particularly scary woman,
I know what you're going to say.
obviously being pulled along on a trolley, which I know now, but as
roller skates, isn't it?
She's like this.
As a 10-year-old kid, and literally, it's this girl walks into this blank room. You can the trouble is, you almost see her clocking it out the corner of her eye when she first walks in, because I think it scared her, even though she knows it's going to happen. And she walks in, and all of a sudden, she walks out, and this woman goes, but it scared the living whatsits out of me. And even now, a film like that is kind of used to, was an X, but it's now like a PG, which kind of shows how long.
I can't watch that mummy film.
But that in itself makes me scared. Even now, it makes me crying out. And it's comical, like the mummy films. You look at that mummy film in particular, I think was probably one of the worst mummy outfits, because you could see where the trousers came up. You could see that there was almost like a panty line.
It's just where it comes down in the fog and there's an old gas lamp over the top of it, It's just, it sets the scene, if you like.
You don't remember gas lamps, do you?
It was in the film.
Sorry.
He was there when they made it.
Actually, I do remember them.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Do you know actually?
That's scary.
Well, do you know actually that this is one thing they didn't people don't realise is, the old gas lamps or the old lamps they used to have in the streets. They used to have hot water in them. Do you know that?
Hot water in them?
Hot water in them, and you used to stick a penny in there, and you could actually get hot water out of the bottom of it. Obviously, they don't do that anymore. But I just thought I'd throw that out for you at home.
You might be interested in that.
It's almost as boring as Fred's story.
Yeah.
No, but this is the thing about even though what I've said it was a film, there are lots of true stories like the one you said at the house. I mean, that is horrific. To think that somebody grabbed a baby, threw it in a fire, and now there's what is the haunting because of that? Is it the lady looking for the baby?
It's the baby apparently itself is
shouting,
screaming.
Water! Water!
But William Darrell, who threw the baby on the fire, did get his comeuppance because he was racing across the fields, either to or from Littlecote House, and the baby apparition appeared in front of him, threw him from his horse, so the story goes, and smashed his head open.
Oh, cool.
Not literally threw him from his horse.
Oh, pigs might go. Anyway, on that, we've actually got a break for a couple of minutes, and if you're not going to turn off now, you never will. So join us in a couple of minutes. I can imagine that.